I live in a feminist family, and I love it. And all our kids are feminists. They know that if they weren't, they'd be disinherited. This is not for us a negotiable item. And I consider it not only one of the fundamental causes of the humankind, but also probably the greatest single struggle on the planet is the struggle for gender equality. And that struggle, I want to say, if I may, to the graduates, men and women together, that's a struggle that never ends. And there isn't a single jurisdiction in this world which has approximated gender equality. And every time you feel you're making progress, there is an inveterate setback. And you will know that this very week in Canada, we concluded a search costing tens of millions of dollars to bring the finest academic researchers in a number of professional disciplines to set up chairs of excellence in Canada. We wooed them from the United Kingdom, from the United States, from Australia, from all over the world. We purchased their fidelity. 19 of them are coming to Canada to be placed at various universities. And as the Toronto Star, in a rather vivid and dramatic page yesterday in the newspaper, had the heading, "Where are the women?" 19 appointments, 19 men. Can you believe it? In the year 2010. I mean, we understand that the world is bereft of scholarship amongst women, so how in God's name could you find any sufficiently worthy to be invested with this kind of notoriety? But the Minister of Industry, a fellow I know reasonably well, said that he was perplexed. He couldn't get over it. They would have to think about how it happened. His very words were, "I just want you to know it leaped out at me. It leaped out at everybody. We talked about it, and we have to figure out what happened here." And everyone is perplexed by this phenomenon of 19 positions and 19 men. And how did it happen? Let me try to explain to people who are of obscurantist minds. If you don't start at the beginning by saying, we want 50% women and 50% men in these appointments, then you're going to get 100% men. That's the way it works. And it's an extraordinarily abject delinquency that no one thought to say to those who were choosing these people from all around the world, that we want gender equality in the outcome. We don't want such a distorted result. And you think that's an aberration? Let me tell you something that I suspect almost no one in this audience will know. 2 months ago, the Secretary General of the United Nations, Ban Ki-moon, decided that he had to have a distinguished panel, internationally drawn, to deal with the funding of climate change mitigation in the developing world so that the developing world could somehow deal with the consequences of global warming. And he appointed the panel. It was also 19 men, not a single woman on the panel. Of course, the international community was absolutely astounded, and Ban Ki-moon, who is finally discovering that there are two genders in the world, it's taken him a little while, but he's getting there. They scrambled frantically, panic-stricken, and found the finance minister of France and the finance minister of Indonesia, who are both women, and put them on the panel so that now they have 2 women out of 21 appointments. And they're happy, and they're satisfied. It's important to recognize, I think, that this gender equality struggle is really absolutely fundamental to the human condition and the search for social justice. Our own government is looking, as you know, at giving centrality to maternal mortality and maternal health at the G8 and G20 conferences, which are coming up in Canada in July of this year. And there has been much discussion around controversial issues, which I recognize, in dealing with this, because the government, having made the announcement, had clearly done very little work on questions of maternal health and maternal mortality, and didn't understand the implications of taking a position, let alone providing any money for the promise, which money has not been seen. But one has to say that in the process of the arguments around family planning and related matters, I noticed that in the New York Times yesterday, Nicholas Kristof, who is probably their most celebrated and distinguished columnist, wrote, and I quote, around maternal mortality. If contraception was broadly available in poor countries, more than 50 million unwanted pregnancies could be averted annually. One result would be 25 million fewer abortions per year, and another would be saving the lives of as many as 150,000 women who now die annually in childbirth. And one of the other dimensions of the discussion around maternal mortality and maternal health was the failure to realize that you also have to deal with HIV and AIDS. And HIV and AIDS looks as though it's dropping off the table internationally in these various and pertinent discussions. And when there was a recent study done on the positive and hopeful gradual reduction of maternal mortality in pregnancy, childbirth, and post-childbirth, the reduction appears to be roughly from 500,000 deaths per year down to about 350,000 deaths per year. The studiers noted that there was a decline in every part of the world except sub-Saharan Africa, where there were 61,000 additional maternal deaths, and almost all of them due to HIV and AIDS. So we all talk in these grandiose terms which focus on women, but when it comes to the crunch, the unwillingness to respond in ways that are thoughtful and meaningful and interventionist, those ways are always in retreat.